What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue my 2023 schedule preview / projected records for the 2023 college football season. And we continue them with the Clemson Tigers. Here was the schedule last year for the Clemson Tigers. The overall record for this team last year going 11-3 in 2022. 10-2 overall in the regular season. And also, if you count that 11th win that came into the ACC championship game. So yeah, Clemson made it to the ACC championship last year. You look at who they played on the schedule in the non-conference. They played Furman, Louisiana Tech, Notre Dame on the road, then of course South Carolina at home. So yeah, they didn't really have too tough of a non-conference schedule. Of course, Notre Dame and South Carolina, both teams that are not in their conference, pretty much, were tough games. Obviously, they lost both of those games in November. Notre Dame on the road. That was probably one of their worst games that they played last year in the regular season. And then obviously South Carolina at home, they lost that game. And that was just kind of a disappointing end to the season for Clemson. But they still made it to the ACC title game, won that one against North Carolina. Then they made it to the Orange Bowl, lost to Tennessee. So it was an up-and-down season for Clemson last year. Of course, the quarterback situation was another worst-case scenario for this team last year. A really big weakness for them. Of course, DJ Ogilvie now transferring in. Caleb Clubden now coming in as the starting quarterback probably this year. What is he going to be like? Will he be that next Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson? But, yeah, like I said, an up-and-down season for this Clemson team. Let's see what the schedule looks like for 2023. Here's the schedule for Clemson heading into the 2023 season. These schedules for the ACC came out yesterday, and the Big 12 is pretty much going to come out today as well. So you look at Clemson's schedule here. You look at who they'll play in the non-conference. They'll play Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic, and then Notre Dame here at home. And then South Carolina on the road. Of course, that's a rival game that's played every year, so they have to play South Carolina every year. And that game will be on the road to start, or actually at the end of the season. And that will be a tough environment to play in. But let's go game by game now. There's no divisions in the ACC this year. So they'll start the season on September the 4th against Duke here on the road. Going to be an interesting game to kick off the season on the road at Duke. Duke was a team that made it to a bowl game last year. They have a lot of expectations coming into 2023, possibly a top 25 team perhaps. But like I said, it's pretty early to tell. But this will be a tough road game here to start out the year for Clemson. And this will be on Labor Day weekend, probably close to Labor Day. And then they'll play those two non-conference games here in the second week and third week of September. Charleston Southern and then Florida Atlantic. And then they'll play Florida State here on September the 23rd. This is going to be a good back-and-forth game. Looking forward to this matchup this year. Last year they played Florida State in October. This time they'll play them in September. So it's pretty early, of a game here against Florida State here on September the 23rd. Obviously, Florida State with high expectations. They were ranked number 4 in the way too early top 25. They have a lot of guys coming back. And, of course, that transfer portal's really helped them out. Syracuse here on September the 30th after Florida State here. They'll play Syracuse here on the road. Potential kind of an upset alert type game here. You kind of don't want to sleep on this Syracuse team. They could probably pull off an upset somehow. Syracuse is a pretty good team last year. And this is just based off of the teams from where they were last year as well. Then they'll play Wake Forest here on October the 7th. Then they'll get a bye week after that game before playing Miami on the road. And then they'll play NC State here on the road. So you got back-to-back road games here on October the 21st and October the 28th. Miami and NC State. Miami was not a good team last year. They were a disappointing team from last year, but this should be a better team than they were as well from last year as well. And I think Miami could probably make this game pretty interesting and probably tough on Clemson. And then NC State here on the road. Obviously, losing Devin Leary is a huge loss for this NC State team, but they're still going to be a decent team. This is going to be a tough place to play. A couple years ago when Clemson came to NC State on the road, they did lose that game, so it could happen probably again. Clemson beat NC State last year, but I think, this will be an interesting test here for this Clemson team. Notre Dame here on November the 4th. That's a revenge game here for Clemson. Obviously losing that game by pretty much, 35-14, I believe was the final score. And that was probably, like I said, one of the worst games I think Clemson played last year. Georgia Tech here on November the 11th. North Carolina here on November the 18th. So you got 2 home games here. You got 3 straight home games here. Obviously, Georgia Tech, a long ways to go before competing in the ACC. And in North Carolina, obviously, a rematch from last year's ACC title game. And like I said, there's no divisions in the ACC this year, which makes it really interesting. So you got North Carolina on the schedule here. The good news is you get all 3 of these games with Notre Dame and North Carolina both at home, and then you obviously get Georgia Tech at home. But like I said, Georgia Tech is not that good of a program right now. Notre Dame and North Carolina are especially tough, but at least you don't have to play both of these games on the road, because that would just be more brutal, but at least they get both of these games at home. And then they'll end things out here on November the 24th or the 25th here on the road at South Carolina. This will be an interesting back and forth game as well. Obviously a revenge game here for Clemson. South Carolina beat Clemson last year. Could Clemson probably get payback and beat South Carolina on the road this year? Clemson's dominated this rivalry as of late, but maybe South Carolina can make this rivalry even more interesting now since they beat them last year, and Shane Beamer's really turned that program around. That's the schedule for Clemson in 2023. The overall schedule is really kind of tough for Clemson because they have to play back-to-back road games, obviously against Miami and NC State, and they have to play an early road game against Duke here early in the season. So it is a pretty tough schedule for Clemson. Let's now get to the projection here. So this is a scale I've been pretty much using for my projections. If it's a 1% game, these are games where Clemson has no chance of winning. 20% games in the orange, games where Clemson's going to be favored by, an underdog, couple touchdown of an underdog. 40% games, about a touchdown underdog in the yellow. And you probably won't see any of those percentages on here. You probably won't see any red, orange, or yellow games on here because we know Clemson is going to be favored in almost every single one of these games on the schedule. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white, pretty much games where they can go either way. 60% games, these are games where Clemson's going to be favored by about a touchdown. 80% games, about a couple touchdowns in the blue. And then 90% games, these are where Clemson is going to be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. And that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with the green games here, about 90% for Clemson. And I just got 2 of those on the schedule. It's the 2 non-conference games here in the 2nd and 3rd week of September. Charleston Southern here, and then Florida Atlantic here on September the 16th. Clemson has no business of losing these games. Both of them are at home, and obviously these are 2 non-conference games, 2 cupcake non-conference games. They have no problems and no business of losing these games. So I think Clemson will be big-time favorites by more than 3 touchdowns. We now go to games where Clemson is going to be favored by a couple touchdowns in the blue, about 80%. And I just got 2 of those on the schedule. I got Wake Forest and then Georgia Tech here at home. Wake Forest obviously kind of in a rebuild situation because Sam Hartman is gone. And then Georgia Tech, obviously not one of the worst ACC teams from last year, but I think this is still a Georgia Tech team that has a long ways to go before competing in the ACC. And I think Clemson should be favored by a couple touchdowns in both of these games. I probably would have put Georgia Tech in the green, but I think, based off of where they were last year, they got pretty decent down the stretch. And I'm going to stick with it and put it here in the blue. And we go to the games now where Clemson is going to go, is going to be favored by about a touchdown, about 60% in the purple. And I got 4 of those on the schedule. I got Duke on the road, Syracuse on the road, NC State on the road, and then North Carolina here at home. Duke, obviously, to kick off the season, it's really too early to tell what these rosters are going to look like in the ACC. I think Clemson, though, will still be a big favorite, even though Duke had a pretty good season last year. I think, Duke has still a long ways to go before becoming that really good program. Obviously, Syracuse, I could have put this one in the 50-50 games, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the purple just because, Clemson beat them last year. I know the game was pretty close last year as well, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the purple. But like I said, that's really a potential upset alert type game. It could probably change to a 50-50 game by the end of the season, or, when we get into the season. And then NC State here on the road. This is another game that I probably could have put in the white or maybe stayed in the white, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the purple. I think the, loss of Devin Leary kind of hurts NC State just a little bit, but I think, they'll be competitive in this game and able to compete against this Clemson team. But I think, somehow Clemson will be a touchdown favorite, but it could change, like I said. Same thing with the Syracuse game. It could really change when the season goes on. And then North Carolina, obviously, here at home. This is another game that I probably could have put in the 50-50 games, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the purple just because of home field advantage. And obviously Clemson beat them last year in the ACC title game. And like I said, this is just based off of where the teams were last year. North Carolina lost 4 straight at the end of the year. And, I got to put this one in the purple because of how they finished from last year. But those are the games where I think Clemson will be favored by about a touchdown in the purple. And the rest of their games here on the schedule, Florida State here at home, Miami on the road, Notre Dame here at home, and then South Carolina on the road are pretty much 50-50 games for Clemson. I think these are games where they can go either way. Florida State, obviously, like I said, it has a lot coming back. This will probably be the biggest game in week number 4 of the 2023 season. And like I said, probably a college game day type game. Miami, obviously, on the road, pretty tough place to play. They get a bye week. That's the good news before they play that game. But Miami should be a better team than they were last year. And I think that's why this game is so interesting and also a tough one to call. I probably would have put this one in the purple. I'm going to stick with it and put it in the white just because it is on the road. If this was a home game for Clemson, I probably could have put it in the purple. I probably could have put this one in the purple. Notre Dame, obviously, I thought about putting that one in the purple, but I think, I'm going to stick with it and put it in the white just because Notre Dame beat Clemson last year. And obviously, if this was a road game for Clemson, I would probably put them as an underdog in this game. But I'm going to stick with it and put it in the white. And then, obviously, South Carolina on the road. It's a rival game. You never know what can happen. South Carolina beat Clemson last year. Clemson probably looking for revenge in this game as well. And maybe this will be an interesting matchup once again. Maybe if this was a home game for Clemson, once again, I probably would have put this one in the purple if they beat South Carolina last year. But I got to put this one and put it in, stay in the white. So how many games do I see Clemson winning out of that schedule? I see them winning 2 out of those 4 games in those 50-50 games. I see them probably winning maybe 2 home games, maybe lose those road games to Miami and South Carolina. That could be possible, but like I said, what if Florida State beats Clemson at home? And what if they lose to, or what if they win both of those road games? It's really possible they can win them all, though. Clemson, though, obviously it's going to come down to the quarterback position. Caleb Kludnick, how good is he going to be? And pretty much as a full-time starter now. But let's get to the projected record now. Like I said, this is not my official prediction. My predictions don't begin until the month of May. If you look at the schedule, Clemson, if you look at their favorites here, at the games that they're favored in and also the games that are 50-50 games, the overall projected record for this Clemson team in 2023 comes out to be 10-2 for Clemson in 2023. So like I said, I think they probably lose 2 games somewhere on that schedule, and it could be Miami and South Carolina on the road. But don't sleep on these purple games. Syracuse obviously on the road is going to be tough, and then NC State on the road will be tough. But you never know about Duke as well. They could probably surprise some people this year, probably winning, 10 or 8 games this year. You never know about it. So the ACC obviously is really one of those tough conferences to predict each and every single year. But like I said, this is simply a projection based on this schedule. But that's my overall projected record for this Clemson team. Let me guys know what you think about this Clemson team heading into 2023. What would their projected record be? And pretty much give me your thoughts down in the comments below. And we'll continue to do more projections throughout this week. The ACC schedules came out yesterday, and the Big 12 schedule should be coming out this afternoon. And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.